I've spent a lot of time thinking, as one does this time of year, as sickos, of which I am one, do this time of year, about players, both from a fantasy perspective and because I'm sick, I'm already thinking about potential prop bets that I'm going to place for week 1 in the NFL. Now, before you're like, oh, but the markets aren't open. I know they're not open. This is all subject to change. What I'm going to tell you is, if things continue to progress the way that they are progressing right now at these training camps, and the markets are going to be what I think they're going to be, where these guys I'm going to talk about are going to be at long prices, not that I'm definitely going to bet them, things can change, but I've got guys, both from a prop betting and a fantasy football perspective, that are squarely on my radar that I think should be on your radar as well. You, the person watching, you, the person listening. Because I am guessing, and it's a really educated guess, that if you are watching or listening to the show on Tuesday, July 29th, or the day after, Wednesday the 30th, you are a sicko, and you are really, really into this stuff in terms of betting and in terms of fantasy. So I'm going to hit you with 5 names right now that I think are definitely going under the radar. Some of them are really, truly Rip Van Winkle level deep sleepers that I think could exceed expectations in fantasy and in prop betting. And honestly, across the board, these 5 names, basically no one's talking about them. Like beat writers are, some fantasy analysts are, people like me and like this show, we are. But overall, I think that most people don't even know who these guys are. And I want to start with the Dallas Cowboys. And if you've been listening to or watching the show, you know that I have a man crush on Phil Mafah. Phil Mafah, 7th round rookie running back out of Clemson. It warmed my heart. Honestly, a little arousing yesterday when I saw a tweet from John Machota of The Athletic tweeting this quote from Brian Schottenheimer, Cowboys head coach. And I will paraphrase the quote. Quote, I'm starting to feel Phil. Talking about Phil Mafah. Now, when you listen to like really smart fantasy football analysts or NFL analysts in general, and they break down this Dallas Cowboys run game for the coming season, they talk about Miles Sanders, who the Cowboys signed in free agency. They talk about Javonte Williams, who the Cowboys signed in free agency, and they talk about Jaden Blue out of Texas, the really speedy, undersized back that Dallas drafted in the 5th round. No one talks about Phil Mafah, even though Phil Mafah is the only running back out of that group, out of those 4, that actually has some size to him, and you feel like could win in short yardage and the goal line. There's even buzz about Deuce Vaughn, who's entering year 3, and he's shorter than me. He's 5'5". You would think at some point Deuce Vaughn would have done it. If he was Maurice Jones-Drew, we would know already. And I'm not trying to bury the young man. I'm just saying we would know already. Miles Sanders stinks. Period. Jag, just a guy. Javonte Williams stinks. Period. Jag, just a guy. Maybe Jaden Blue's good, but there are reports saying the Cowboys think he's lazy and he's undersized. Is he built to be the number 1 running back of the Dallas Cowboys or of any team? And we are just ignoring this 7th round running back who's got big time size. He's got power, and the head coach is starting to feel him, and no one's talking about him. So I ask you, dear listener and dear viewer, with everything I just said, all facts, is it impossible that Phil Mafah is Dallas's number 1 running back this season, or at very least, the goal line back? For the next one, Houston Texans rookie running back Woody Marks. So here's the situation right now in Houston. I'm going to lay out facts for everybody right now, and then I'm going to ask a question at the end of the laying out of said facts. So Joe Mixon was Houston's number 1 running back last year and is expected to be their number 1 running back this year. And candidly, he had an awesome season last year behind a terrible offensive line. He was really good. Finished as one of I think the top 7 running back in fantasy football. Mixon was great last season. This offseason has not been a great one thus far for Joe Mixon from a health perspective. Mixon dealing with foot and ankle injuries, going to miss, quote, an extended period of time and is currently on the NFI list. So he is on the injured list already, and his status for week 1 very much appears to be in doubt for the Houston Texans. So let's assume that Joe Mixon's out for week 1, and it's really bad that injuries are lingering for him already. It's July, and he's got multiple injuries already, like he's the knight from Monty Python. Maybe a dated reference for everybody, but there you go. So Joe Mixon is not healthy. The next man up for the Houston Texans at the running back position is Nick Chubb. Yes, that Nick Chubb. This were 3-4 years ago, man, we would be super excited about this. And it gives me no glee, it gives me no pleasure to say to all of you right now, I think Nick Chubb is washed. And it's not his fault. He's dealt with multiple significant injuries. We watched Nick Chubb last season in Cleveland. Did anyone think he looked like the Nick Chubb of old? Reports thus far have not exactly been glowing on Nick Chubb at Texans camp throughout either this summer or throughout the spring when he signed a 1-year, $2.5 million contract with the Houston Texans. So I know conventional wisdom says that Nick Chubb's going to be the first guy up. Why? Why? And maybe he is the first guy up. I don't think he's any good. And this is a team harboring playoff aspirations coming off back-to-back AFC South champions. Now, perhaps you'd like to make a case for incumbent Dameon Pierce, to which I would say, if they liked Dameon Pierce so much behind Joe Mixon, do you think they would have signed Nick Chubb and drafted Woody Marks? Probably not, if they felt like Pierce was the guy. Also, maybe wouldn't have brought in Joe Mixon in the first place if they liked Dameon Pierce. I think the Texans have told us via roster moves, draft picks, signings, etc., what they think of Dameon Pierce. So if it's true that Joe Mixon dealing with injuries, lingering injuries to his ankles and feet, seems important if your job is running the football. If that's true, and it is. And if it's true that Nick Chubb is the next man up, and that is true. And if it's true, I can't prove this, but I think I'm right, that Chubb's washed up, why can't Woody Marks be the Texans' top running back? Why can't that happen? And I know the Texans' offensive line isn't great. It also wasn't great last year. Joe Mixon played pretty well and had a pretty nice season. I think people are looking past Woody Marks, and I'm not saying that Woody Marks is Barry Sanders. Just that, think about opportunity, think about a potential path, and tell me it's not there after the facts, not opinion, after the facts that I just laid out. I guess it's my opinion that Nick Chubb's washed up, but I mean, I don't know how you watched the games last year and come to a different conclusion. And I don't say that with glee, just like it's kind of what I think, and I think I'm going to be right about that. So Woody Marks, the second player. So we started with 2 running backs. Let's end with 3 wide receivers. Wide receiver number 1 is a rookie for the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I know what you're probably thinking if you're a sicko. Man, like Trey Harris was a second-round pick. Everybody knows about Trey Harris. But we're not talking about Trey Harris. We're going to talk instead about 5th-round wide receiver out of Auburn, Keandre Lambert-Smith. Now, because the Chargers are playing in the Hall of Fame game in a couple nights, just like the Lions, they have been at training camp longer than every team except for Detroit. So we are farther along in Chargers training camp than we are at other training camps. And it feels like since Chargers camp opened, there has basically been a video every single day from a Chargers beat reporter. Here's Keandre Lambert-Smith absolutely flaming one of their cornerbacks for a deep reception from Justin Herbert or another quarterback on the roster. So let's think about the Chargers wide receivers. They signed Mike Williams to be a starter. He retired the night before training camp started, and we feel bad for Mike Williams, who's has dealt with knee injuries and injuries basically since the Chargers made him a first-round pick, a top 10 pick out of Clemson many years ago. So Mike Williams retires. That leaves, for the Los Angeles Chargers, Quentin Johnston, who maybe you want to argue can fulfill some of that potential that made him a first-round pick. I think it's a little unlikely. Every single day, it's like an up and down for Quentin Johnston. Here's one great catch, then he has a drop, and he's hanging his head. We've watched Quentin Johnston for a couple of years. I think he's not Treylon Burks. Like, he's an NFL player. Like, he's not going to get cut. And if the Chargers released him, he would get picked up immediately by another team. He's not a scrub. He's not Jag, just a guy. But I don't know if he's a difference maker. I don't know if that's ever going to be the case. So we have Quentin Johnston. Ladd McConkey's role is secure, and Ladd McConkey's upside is to be one of the 10 best receivers in football this year. He's great. I love Ladd McConkey. Trey Harris. Maybe Trey Harris has got the goods. We'll see. There has been objectively, not subjectively, objectively, more buzz about Lambert Smith than there has been about Trey Harris. Now think about Justin Herbert's skill set. And think about what the Los Angeles Chargers lacked last season, both in the run game, to be fair, and also the pass game. And they look to address that problem in the run game. Here's Omarion Hampton, who's certainly capable of busting off big runs and explosive plays. They lack explosive plays in the pass game down the field. This is Lambert Smith's game. Now, it's still July. Certainly possible that Trey Harris laps him in between now and the start of the regular season. Maybe even Quentin Johnston laps him. There's even been some positive praise for Darius Davis, another wide receiver on the roster who plays special teams also. So there's still time here. But I think you absolutely, fantasy football, you're in deep leagues, you're playing best ball. As we start to think about how we want to bet week one, if he's going to make this roster and he's good in the preseason, just keep that name in mind. Keandre Lambert Smith from the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's stay in division for the fourth name in the AFC West. And members of the show crew off air will know the name that I'm about to mention. Third round receiver from the Denver Broncos out of the University of Illinois. The one, the only, Pat Bryant, who compares to Michael Thomas. You might be saying to yourself, wow, that's pretty lofty. How could you say something like that, Nick? Well, how about because Sean Payton himself has said it this offseason? Payton obviously coached Michael Thomas in New Orleans. Now he coaches Pat Bryant in Denver. Bryant basically has identical size to Michael Thomas. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Michael Thomas, who won Offensive Player of the Year and absolutely dominated for the New Orleans Saints. I'm not saying that Pat Bryant's going to be that good as a rookie or ever. But think about path for this Broncos receiving corps. Cortland Sutton is the established one, and he deserved to sign a big money contract extension yesterday. 4 years, $92 million. Sutton was great last year, year one with Bo Nix, and Sutton's going to be a mainstay for this receiving corps for years to come. It is going to be the number one this season. The rest of the names, though, in this Broncos receiving corps are not exactly household names, or ones where you can just pencil them in and say, hey, I have a pretty good idea of what this is going to look like come week one at home against the Tennessee Titans. There's Marvin Mims. This is why he's hot. This is why he's hot. This is why he's hot. Marvin Mims is a gadget player, and he's a really good gadget player, but that's what he devolved into last year. Passes behind the line of scrimmage, the occasional deep shot. He's going to be involved in the offense. Is he going to be a volume hog? I doubt it. Okay. What about Devon Vele? 7th-round pick last year. Did you know Devon Vele's 28 years old? I think Vele has a decently high floor. He showed that last year. He's got no ceiling. And I have nothing against the guy, but let's call it like it is. Like, he's fine. He's going to make the team, I think. I don't think he's a huge threat here. There's Trent Sherfield. Jag. Just a guy. There's Bo Nix's college teammate, who I like, in Troy Franklin. But Troy Franklin was wildly inconsistent last year. He would have plays where he would get behind the defense, drop passes. Bo Nix, I think, missed him, to be fair to him, on a couple deep balls last year. But Troy Franklin, his game is more down the field. Pat Bryant's game is over the middle. And I know the Broncos signed Evan Ingram to play the joker role in Sean Payton's offense, but there is opportunity to be had in this Broncos offense. And I think Bryant and his skill set fits Bo Nix's game perfectly. I have drafted Pat Bryant pretty aggressively in dynasty leagues. I drafted him in the Scott Fish Bowl, and I'm going to be looking at him in redraft leagues, assuming things continue to go well. There's a lot of positive praise at Broncos camp for him. I'll be looking to draft Pat Bryant. And, man, if he's going to be in this rotation, let's check out that anytime touchdown price coming up for week 1 against the Tennessee Titans. And the last name here out of 5, wide receiver, and we'll stay in the AFC for this one. And this player is not a rookie, but I think he's worthy of everybody's attention. I think he needs to be back on everybody's radar. Last year, the Cincinnati Bengals spent a third-round pick, wide receiver out of Alabama, Jermaine Burton. And Burton, despite the fact that everyone, and I'm not grinding college football tape, but the fact that everyone said this guy is way more than a third-round talent, but lasted to the third round because he's kind of loco. He's cuckoo. He's nuts. And that manifested last year because Burton, despite having this unbelievably high ceiling as a talent, couldn't get on the field because he's missing meetings. He's not lining up in practice in the right spots. He's not showing up for team pictures. It was always something last year for Jermaine Burton. Couldn't get on the field for the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher is on record saying that Burton this offseason is doing all the things that he needs to do. Now, to be fair, it's a low bar to clear. Like, he's showing up on time. He's not no-showing events. He's showing up on time, and he's lining up in the right spot in practice. You might say, well, I mean, of course, that's the expectation. That's like the first thing. That's like what they teach you on day one. But he was lacking that. See, Jermaine Burton's got all the other stuff. He's got the physical ability. He's got the sky-high talent. He needed to get the basics locked down. And sky's the limit. It's too early to say if Jermaine Burton is going to carve out a role in this Bengals passing attack because he is nuts and could go off the reservation at any moment. But if he continues with his head on straight, think about what that passing offense was last year. Think about the fact that this defense is going to be bad this year, whether Shamar Stewart's good or not, whether they sign Trey Hendrickson or not. They're going to be in shootouts. They're going to have to score. Here's Burrow. Here's Chase. Here's Higgins. Here's Chase Brown. And here's Jermaine Burton. If Burton keeps his head on straight and performs well in the preseason, wheels up big time on Jermaine Burton, who will be not your normal number 3 wide receiver on an NFL team. We like Andre Yoshivas. We like Mike Gesicki. Neither have the talent of Jermaine Burton. Keep him on your radar big time for fantasy, and let's keep him on the radar as we approach week 1 for Cincinnati on the road